Does that look weird? I can't really tell. It's been like so cloudy and like the sun is going in and out, and I feel like we need some warmth. So I grabbed a lamp that I have on my bookshelves and I plopped it right there. And I don't know if it looks silly or not, but I think it's cute. Maybe? I don't know. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Kat, and today we're going to be talking about the books that I read in October, November, and we're probably going to talk about some books that I've read in December. I honestly haven't been reading that many books in December, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I feel like this time of year, I don't often read a lot of books, and I think I'm just going to be a bit more busy. So I am kind of like declaring my reading year over in a sense. I think I might read some like graphic novels and like shorter things because right now also I just like don't have the attention span for it. I have not been able to really just like sit and read a book. So I don't know. I think we're just gonna call this year a bit of a wrap. If there's any updates, if I have read any books, I will just post it on my storygraph and fable, and I'll probably share it on Instagram if you are so curious to hear what I've read or if there's any other books that I've finished at the end of 2024. As like a heads up, I didn't take any notes on these books. I also didn't like really prep too much. I just kind of wanted to talk about these books and I wanted it to feel a bit casual. So there's going to be a lot of details that I don't remember, but I hope that's okay. I just wanted to kind of take the pressure off of chatting about books because this is fun. It's supposed to be fun, and I don't want to stress myself out thinking that I missed every little detail. So just a little disclaimer on my reviews in this video. It might be a little all over the place. But for now, let's just dive into some of the books that I read. The first book that I finished in October was Kala by Colin Walsh. I listened to this on audio and I also physically read it. This is one that I feel like I started in September and it took me a while to kind of get through. But in this book, we are basically following these group of friends who growing up, I don't remember what age they were, but growing up, they were all like this tight-knit group, and one of the girls, Kala, goes missing, and they haven't found her body. They don't really know what happened. We are shifting perspectives between three of her friends. I don't remember their names. Joe, Helen, and Mush. And we are switching between their perspectives. So we are getting an insight into like what their relationship was with Kala, what that looked like, how it started, the impacts that Kala had on their lives. And typically I do really love when there's like a point of view change between different characters because I like getting like as many perspectives as possible. And in this, I feel like I really enjoyed Mush and Helen's point of view, but Joe's point of view was kind of a slog. Like whenever I would see that it was his chapter, I was like kind of upset about it. I didn't really like getting his perspective. There was like some things that he would say that like I didn't really understand what he was talking about. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but he was just not, I didn't enjoy reading his perspective. Mush, I absolutely loved, and Helen, I also really enjoyed reading from her perspective. So that is something that kind of like slowed my reading down a bit, where whenever it was Joe's part, I was like, I'm bored. I don't want to read like his point of view. Overall, I did enjoy my time. It was entertaining. I don't think it's like a new favorite. I do feel like at points it felt a bit long. I'm not really sure if that's like my fault because I did space it out so much or if the book just like felt a bit long. But overall, glad I read it. It was entertaining and the writing was also like beautiful. So that made it easy to want to read. But yeah, I definitely spaced it out. Don't know that I would recommend that. I feel like if you're going to read it, try and read it as fast as you can, I guess. It was all right. I enjoyed it enough. The second book that I read in October was Monstrilio by Gerardo, sámano, córdova. This book has been on my TBR for such a long time. I feel like I've heard such great things about it. I thought that the concept would be something that I would really enjoy, and I'm glad that I finally got to it in October. Perfect time of year to read it. This is about a woman whose son passes away, and she saves a small piece of his lung. She just kind of like keeps it for herself, but after some time, she starts like nurturing it, feeding it, and then the lung just kind of like becomes sentient and now she's like kind of raising it, and her husband isn't aware of like what she's doing in the beginning, but then finds out, and the family members start finding out and we kind of see their perspectives change a bit, like once they are around monstrilio a little bit more, and now he's just like part of their family. It's a very interesting book. You are changing perspectives between the characters and you aren't like going back and forth between them. So like the very first part of this will be from the mother's point of view, Magos, so it's from her point of view, and then it shifts to the dad's point of view. Totally forgot his name. What is his name? The first part is from the mom's point of view, Magos, and then the second part is Lena's point of view. She's one of Magos's closest friends, and then it shifts to Joseph, who is the father, and then it switches to M, which is monstrilio. So you're not shifting like back and forth. You are starting with one of the characters, and then it goes to the next character and like continues in time. So you're not like going necessarily back in the past, back and forth. It's a very interesting take. I didn't know how I would feel about it because I do really enjoy when books have like multiple characters and multiple points of views, but I've never seen a book do it this way. So there were times where I was like, no, I kind of wish we could get the perspective of like the father at the time that Magos was like feeding, or the time that he found out that Magos had been like feeding a piece of the lung. Like I wanted to get that perspective, but it was like later on in life as like monstrilio was older. So I thought that that was interesting, and at first I was like, I don't think I like this, but the more I like sat with it and the more I read, I really appreciated it, and I thought it was like a really unique way to go about it. So I did really enjoy that aspect of it. I think it's a great take on grief, and it was really interesting to see how each of the characters dealt with the loss and how they communicated with each other or didn't communicate with each other. I thought it was really beautiful, and in the end I finished it and I was like, I don't know if this is a favorite, but the more that I sit with it, the more that it has stuck with me and these characters have stuck with me, and I just really enjoyed it. I loved monstrilio. Lena was like one of my favorites. She was amazing. She did so much. I really enjoyed this one overall. I'm so glad I read it. I'm glad I own it too. I didn't underline it a bunch, but it's just, I think it's such a cool cover, and I'm glad it's on my shelves. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is Gerardo's debut, but I'm excited to read whatever else comes out by this author. This was a great debut. If it is a debut. I'm pretty sure it is though. Okay, so that was the second book that I read in October, and the next book I read in October is My Vampire is a Roommate. Nope. My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. And I was just looking for something super light and fluffy and just easy on my brain. Like I needed something like that. I actually got this recommendation from Elaine, and her handle is Pages with EP Nelson, and I just remember reading her review and I was like, I think I just need to like pick this up. It seems like a fun, silly book to just turn my brain off, and that's exactly what this did for me. It was just like a fun, silly time. It's basically about this girl. She has to find a new place to stay because her current roommate is going to be moving in with their partner. So she needs to find a new space because she can't afford staying there. And she sees this flyer for this super cheap apartment. And so she takes it, and yep, I feel like you can already imagine what happens next, but it was just silly. It was a good time. I don't really have anything specific to say. I turned my brain off and read it. I was trying not to be too critical of it. The dialogue wasn't that great, but like I said, I just needed something super silly, and that did the job for me. Okay, and then the next book that I read in October was Brownstone, which was written by Samuel Teer, and the graphics were done by Mar Julia. This is a young adult graphic novel, and we are basically following our main narrator, and she's being left with her father, and her mom is going away on a trip, so she is going to be spending most of the summer with her father, who they don't have like the closest relationship. Her father hasn't really been around, and her mom is white and her father is Guatemalan, so she doesn't really speak Spanish, so it's kind of interesting for them having to like communicate and try and understand each other. She's feeling hesitant about it, but she is there, and it's, I don't know, I really love this story. This one was recommended to me by Ivana, and I'm so glad that she did because I absolutely loved it. There were so many sweet moments between her and her father, but also you got to see like the complicated messiness of it and them not really understanding each other at times, and how they had to kind of figure that out so that they could form somewhat of a relationship. There's one part in particular that almost got me to cry, but I really enjoyed this graphic novel. I loved seeing like the main narrator getting to like know the neighbors and seeing like that community, because her dad lives in New York and it's like a very like Latino heavy neighborhood. So she's kind of getting to see a little bit more of like the neighbors and how they kind of look out for each other, how there's kind of some drama. And while she's staying with her father, they're kind of fixing up this brownstone and he's hoping to like rent it out and make it affordable for the people in his community so that they can rent it out. And I just absolutely loved that. I loved seeing them work on the house together. I loved seeing her like exploring and getting close to these people in the neighborhood. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so sweet. If you're looking for like a YA graphic novel, I think that this one is so good and the art was beautiful. So if I find like some pictures, because I don't have it, I got it from the library, but I'll put them on the screen somewhere just so you can get a little sneak peek of what the art is like. I wish this book was around when I was younger, but I'm glad that it exists now. Okay, so those are the books that I read in October. I read 4 books, and then in November, I don't remember. Okay, I also read 4 books in November. The very first book that I read was I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. I think this was first put on my radar by Catherine on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is Notes from My Bookshelf, and this book was a really fun time. I was kind of worried that it would stress me out a bit and feel too much like, oh God, I can't escape work. But it didn't feel that way at all. In this book, we are following our main narrator, Jolene, and she has basically been sending emails to her coworkers where she'll send like an extra like paragraph or like a little bit of text at the end of an email, and she's been changing the font color so that it just like blends into the background. And like that's her way of kind of just like dealing with work and the people that she works with and all the annoying things that come up. But there's one day where she sends an email, forgets to do it, and sends it, and gets pulled into HR, has to do some training because she might lose her job if she doesn't go through it and if she doesn't like pass this like course that she's taking. During the HR training, they have now put some sort of software on her computer to kind of like monitor her, and there's something that's like wrong with it or goes wrong where now she's able to access all of her coworkers' emails and like messages to each other. So now she can read all of that. So that's like the main synopsis of this book, but there's a lot that goes on actually. There's a lot of like home life and like family stuff. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's Persian. So we see a lot of like those like cultural aspects and her family really wanting her to get married and like when is she gonna get married and like all of these pressures being added to her plate and her kind of like navigating talking to her mom and all of that. So we see that, but we also find out that there's something that took place when she was younger with one of her friends. It's kind of slowly revealed as we go along, so we see why she struggles a little bit with friends and just like her self-image as well and how she views herself. And we see her trying to interact with her coworkers after like everything has happened with her being put on this program, and also there's a little bit of romance in there. So I wasn't expecting that at all, but I thought it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook of it as well. Yeah, no, I mainly listened to the audiobook and I really enjoyed the audiobook. I thought the narrator did a great job. It also just kind of felt like you were getting like all the gossip. Like you were seeing all the drama between each of the coworkers, what was going on in their personal lives. I just like overall thought that it was done really well and it didn't just feel like all work related. It was fun. Okay, the next book that I read was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I have had this on my shelves for such a long time. I remember trying to read it like several years back, and I'm really glad that I ended up picking this back up. In Between the World and Me, this is basically Ta-Nehisi Coates writing a letter to his son about what it's like being a black man, a black boy, a black person in the United States of America. So he kind of gives a bit of like history on like the United States and also like his personal experience of being a black man in the United States. This was so beautifully written. There were so many pages that I was underlining. Like if I just flip through like the first page I picked, like there's annotations on this. I didn't stop annotating this. I thought that this was so beautiful and the writing was absolutely stunning. I also listened to it on audiobook, which I feel like might have also helped me work my way through this a little bit more, because listening to him read it was just, I feel like it just added to it. If you're going to read this and you like audiobooks, I do highly recommend the audiobook for this one. I'm going to read this one. I feel like there's so many that I could have picked in here, but I'll read this one. So it says, Black people love their children with a kind of obsession. You are all we have, and you come to us endangered. I think we would like to kill you ourselves before seeing you killed by the streets that America made. And then a little further down it says, it was only after you that I understood this love, that I understood the grip of my mother's hand. She knew that the galaxy itself could kill me, that all of me could be shattered and all of her legacy spilled upon the curb like bum wine, and no one would be brought to account for this destruction, because my death would not be the fault of any human, but the fault of some unfortunate but immutable fact of race imposed upon an innocent country by the inscrutable judgment of invisible gods. So this book is, I feel like, a must read. If you haven't read this one, definitely get around to it. I'm glad that I finally picked it up. It's been on my shelves for a while and I wanted to pick it up because, I mean, I've wanted to read this, but I also really want to read The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I figured I should read this one and then I can get to The Message. So really glad I read it. The next book that I read was Small Things Like These by Keegan, and I feel like I've talked about this one a lot, so I don't think I'm going to talk too much about this one. I read this one in November, and I wanted to read it before going to watch the film, so I finally got around to it, and in this, we are basically following, what is his name? Bill Furlong, and it takes place in 1985 in a small Irish town, and he is a coal merchant. So one day he's making a delivery to a local convent and he comes across something that kind of forces him to confront what has been going on in this small town within like the church and how people have been keeping silent. This one was really powerful. It's probably like a favorite of mine of the year. I think it's still really sticking with me, and I feel like maybe because I watched the film on top of that, it's making even more of an impact. But if you've read this and haven't watched the movie, I also really recommend it. I thought that it was so well done. I feel like I have talked about it so highly in so many videos, so I don't want to blab on too long about this one, but glad I read it. This is my second Keegan, and I'm curious to read more from her. The next and final book that I read in November was The Rachel Incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue. In this book, we are basically following Rachel, who is in college at the time, and she's kind of like looking back at that time period in her life, and she becomes really close friends with this guy named James, and we see their friendship form, and there's something that takes place that kind of really affects her life and like her future. So we are kind of like reading through and slowly finding out what exactly it was that happened. I went into this book knowing not that much, and it was a ride, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading it and following along, seeing the friendship between Rachel and James, and also like her relationship with her other James, but I don't remember what she called him because she didn't call him James because she only wanted to call her best friend James and no one else could have that name. So yeah, we kind of follow them along and they're so funny. They have like the best time together. I loved Rachel and James's relationship and reading about it, and the writing of this was amazing. I also listened to this on audiobook, loved the narrator. I went into it not knowing how I would feel about it. I didn't think I would love it as much as I did. This like low-key put me in a reading slump because after this I haven't been able to read anything that has like hit as much as this book has, and was not expecting that. I love this book so much. If you like campus novels, I feel like you'll really love this. If you love seeing really close friendships and reading about them, there's humor in there. Like, I thought that they were so funny, but there's also like heavier topics discussed. And yes, I just really, really enjoyed this book. If you have been curious about it, I highly recommend it. Again, I do recommend the audiobook if you like listening to audiobooks. I think it was really well done. I am very jealous of anyone who hasn't read it yet because now you get to read it. It's so good. Okay, so that was November, and now we're in December, and I've only read 3 books, and I literally read them the past like day or two. I've been moving slowly through the Book of Delights by Ross Gay, and I've also been reading Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead very slowly as well. And I don't know, I feel like my brain just doesn't really want to read anything right now. I have been reading the Heartstopper books though. I started them Friday and today's Sunday. So 2 days ago I started, and I've read the first 3 books in that series, and I will probably finish the other 2 tonight. So I wanted to mention those because I'm reading them right now. There's not too much that I want to say. I am really enjoying them. Charlie and Nick are like so precious. We are basically following Charlie and Nick, and they're in high school and they become friends and start hanging out a lot and slowly start having feelings for each other. Charlie, like the past year, was outed and had to deal with a lot of bullying. So we kind of see Charlie deal with that a bit, while also like Nick was aware of the bullying, and Nick's not really sure like what his sexuality is, like he's very confused. So we just kind of like see them as they're becoming friends and become boyfriends. It's just really, really cute, and I love the art, like the little sketches. I watched the show first, like I haven't finished the second season, but I watched the first season and I loved like the little doodly elements that they added to it, and it's just so cool like reading it and then also having watched the show and seeing like the characters there. I feel like it's just making me enjoy it so much more. I have just been really loving them so much. I feel like December is going to be a big like graphic novel heavy month. That's what I'm thinking, because I also have this book, Noodle and Bow, and Ivana is lending this to me, so I'm probably going to read this one once I'm done Heartstopper. I also want to read The Wood at Midwinter. This one's super short, like so short, and a lot of it is just like drawings, so I think I'll also read this one soon. But besides that, I don't think I'm going to be reading like any big, thick novels at the moment. My brain just can't. It just can't right now. I think in December, I'm going to kind of just like slow my reading down. This has been like such a slow reading year in general, but I really want to focus on like some other hobbies. I want to work on like my wooble and see if I can actually make one, and also work on sketching, maybe coloring, maybe working with like my pastels. Maybe I'll do some puzzles. If there's any like fun hobbies that you have and want to share, feel free. Like maybe I will give it a go, but I just want to, I don't know, try working on some other hobbies and nurturing that part of my brain a little bit. But yeah, this is the last wrap up of 2024. Would love to hear what are some books that you've recently finished reading. Have you read any of the books that I've read, or yeah, what have you read? Let me know down below. I would love to chat about it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next video, which is going to be my favorite books of 2024. So I'll see you then, and we will be talking about favorites, which I'm so excited about. I hope you're well, and I'll see you then. Bye.